Next on the news, a pilgrimage of peace at the Vatican begins now. Pope Francis meeting with Canadian bishops and Indigenous leaders to talk about those residential schools and thousands of deaths. Russia intensifies its attacks, moving westward. Some refugees taking to the mountains where people have hidden from war for centuries. Then, pro-life pride in the abortion capital of America. Leaders in the fight for life take over Lower Manhattan to help the world remember God's greatest gift. Plus, she shoots, she scores, but she doesn't see. A Michigan sports program made it happen. Watch this incredible team take the court. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now. It's the start of a busy week for Pope Francis. He'll join Indigenous leaders from Canada and survivors of the country's notorious residential schools to make a pilgrimage of peace. Many think at the end of this week, the Vatican could announce a papal trip to the very grounds where hundreds were discovered in unmarked graves. It's been years in the making, a milestone meeting at the Vatican this week. The Holy Father finally sitting down with representatives of Canada's Indigenous community, listening to the painful stories of survivors of former Indian residential schools there, ones run by the Catholic Church and later the federal government.
What I realized yesterday was how strong I was as a little boy. How strong I was as a little boy to be here today, because I know that a lot of people didn't come home.
Harvey McLeod is one of those survivors. He says he was abused at this residential school where last May the remains of 215 children were found.
Dei dolori e delle sofferenze del passato.
Last year, Pope Francis prayed for those traumatized by the discovery, but some members of Indigenous communities are pushing for a papal apology on Canadian soil. Catholic bishops and religious communities in Canada have apologized several times for their roles in running the schools. Now everyone, including Archbishop Richard Gagnon, president of the Canadian Catholic Bishops' Conference, just hoping this week's meetings will take steps toward further healing and reconciliation.
The Holy Father, his methodology is to enter into dialogue, to listen, to respond. And so he'll have an opportunity of meeting, residential school survivors and others, and to hear what the problems are unique to each one of those three groups, and have an opportunity to respond to them.
The Pope will hold another meeting on Thursday. Then on Friday, Francis will gather with the entire group and will deliver an address. While the much anticipated Vatican meeting was private, the Indigenous leaders did hold a news conference to talk about their conversations with the Holy Father. Elisa Ann Allen, senior correspondent from Crux, was there, and she'll join us later in the newscast.
Non dobbiamo abitarci alla guerra.
Also tonight, yet another papal plea for peace. This time, the Pope did not mince words, calling the war in Ukraine a full-on invasion. The Pope warned that we should not accustom ourselves to war to make it normal. But today, it seems that his pleas are being ignored as Russia intensifies its attacks on Ukrainian cities. Chris Wynn has the latest on the battle and how the President of the United States may have set off a global reaction.
As Russia intensifies its missile strikes on Ukrainian cities in the west and the east, heavy fighting also continues in the south, where the mayor of the port city of Mariupol has called for a complete evacuation of the remaining population. A weeks-long siege by Russian forces has flattened the city, leaving an unknown number of civilians dead and forcing hundreds of thousands of people from their homes. Intense fighting also continuing in the suburbs of Kyiv, as Russian forces attempt to establish a corridor around the capital to block supply routes, according to a Ukrainian defense official. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's ready to accept a neutral, non-nuclear status as part of a peace deal with Russia, but any agreement would have to be put to the Ukrainian people in a referendum.
This was the first point of principle for the Russian Federation, as I recall. And as far as I remember, they started the war because of this.
Meanwhile, President Joe Biden triggering a political storm after going off script during a speech in Poland.
For God's sake, this man cannot remain power.
White House officials and Biden himself now trying to downplay the remarks, saying he was really arguing that Vladimir Putin can't be allowed to exercise his power over neighboring countries.
It was expressing my outrage. He shouldn't remain in power. Just like, bad people shouldn't continue to do bad things. But it doesn't mean we have a fundamental policy to do anything to take Putin down.
Chris Wynn, Currents News.
Turning now to New York City, Mayor Eric Adams says the Big Apple has become a laughing stock as it grapples with a surge in crime and homelessness. And in defense of his newly formed anti-gun unit, the mayor posted this clip to Twitter Sunday. It shows the moment when two gunmen robbed a Bronx woman and her baby in an apartment lobby earlier this month. The mayor's tweet comes after a handful of New Yorkers criticized the new team, expressing concerns that it could turn into the next plainclothes unit, which was dissolved in 2020 after police brutality protests. And in an attempt to help homeless New Yorkers receive social services, the mayor announced a plan to clear out more than 150 homeless encampments throughout the city over the next 2 weeks. Already, city officials have been visiting makeshift sites, both on the streets and in the subway, giving the people there 24 hours to clear out and move into a shelter. And while a few people have expressed a willingness to move, homeless advocates have denounced the plan, saying it fundamentally misunderstands the situations faced by New York's unsheltered. And according to the Coalition for the Homeless, the shabby state of city shelters are to blame for the number of people on the streets. The nonprofit says as of 2022, roughly 48,400 homeless people rely on city shelters each night. That's significantly higher than the city's official count, which last winter estimated the Big Apple's homeless population at just 2,300 people. Altogether, the coalition says over 10,000 families and nearly 19,000 individual adults sleep in the city's main shelter system every night. Many are concerned if the mayor uproots the makeshift shelters, more of the homeless will take to the subways. And many New Yorkers are just getting back to work. This measure could keep them off the rails. Currents News' Jessica Easthope says they're worried about their safety underground.
As New York attempts to recover from COVID-19, riders say the subway system is still sick.
It's been disturbing. Just in the past week, various people breaking the law. One guy was lighting things on fire.
People pushing people being nervous and scared.
Mayor Eric Adams was elected, vowing to make New York safer. Now he and Governor Kathy Hochul are working their way up, starting with the underground transit system many say is beyond repair.
It's going to take a ton of money and organization, and I don't see it.
The plan, tackle homelessness with the help of trained social workers and add more cops to, quote, reimagine the NYPD's coverage of the subways.
Like to see police a little more dispersed, walking around, not on their telephones.
But riders say they're not imagining the risk to their safety. Mayor Adams now says he feels unsafe only after he was criticized for saying it's only the perception of fear that have people scared to get on the train.
I haven't seen him taking the train with me. It's basically become, the world's largest mobile homeless rescue operation.
2 years ago, the pandemic brought ridership to a screeching halt, and it's only reached 56% of pre-pandemic levels. But still, many agree. One sound that's being ignored, a cry for help by New York City's homeless.
In a sense, they're asking for help, but still being ignored.
And I hope they get the help that they need, because it's like a cry out. But I am worried.
In the meantime, riders say they're waiting and hope Mayor Adams' promises don't go off the rails. In Manhattan, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
The church believes every person has a right to life, rich, poor, homeless, or not, even the unborn. That fight for life sent more than 100 marching into Lower Manhattan this weekend. The 6th annual Gift of Life Walk brought together people of all different faiths down the same path, marching more than a mile in an effort to bring awareness to the pro-life fight. The event is sponsored by Personhood Education New York, a faith-based charity that works to promote life at all stages. This year's demonstration also happened at the same time the Holy Father consecrated Russia and Ukraine. The group, while carrying an image of Our Lady of Fatima, joined in on the prayer. There's a lot more news headed your way, welcoming fleeing refugees with open arms. A look at the mountains that have protected the persecuted time and time again. Plus, with Holy Week right around the corner, we break down the different ways the church uses chrism oils. And this. The crowd goes wild. Just what makes this impressive shot all the more special.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
Back now to our top story. Pope Francis meeting with Indigenous delegations from Canada. For a deeper look into the significance of this, we turn to Elise Ann Allen, senior correspondent from Crux. She joins us now from Rome. And Elise, the Canadian Catholic bishops traveling with the Indigenous delegation have hinted that the Holy Father might apologize this week for the Church's role in the deaths of those residential school children. Do you see that happening? And I know the meetings already began and they're private, but you were at a press conference afterwards. I know you were saying that the Church, they want to see the Church take action. Talk a little bit about that.
Thanks, Christine. In terms of the apology, I think that's very much something that we can expect out of this trip. If the Pope doesn't say it directly here, and I think he probably will during the big audience that's going to happen with everybody on Friday. But if he doesn't say the full extent of the apology, remember the Pope has promised to visit Canada as part of the reconciliation process with Canadian Indigenous, and I think he will certainly deliver the apology there. And members of the delegations who met with the Pope in this press conference this afternoon were saying they really wanted some specific things from the Church. They said they do want the apology, and they asked for the Pope to do that as kind of the head of the global institution of the Catholic Church. They said they want that recognition from the top, but they also said that it needs to go beyond words, and they want specific actions on the part of the Church. One of which is access to the residential Catholic school, residential school records, in terms of who is there and when. Many family members might have been lost track of over the years. Some might have disappeared. They have no idea where they ended up with. So they want to know what happened to their family members and where they went.
How likely is it that the Church will open those records?
I think the bishops who are there are 5 bishops who are traveling from Canada as part of this delegation. And, in their responses to this in the press conference, they were very open to it. They seemed very eager to do whatever they can to help in this healing and reconciliation process.
Let's look at the history here. What has the Church said in the past regarding the discovery of these unmarked graves and the abuses the students endured?
The Catholic Church, since then, the bishops of Canada and specific orders have really repeated their apologies for the Church's role and for the various abuses that children suffered at this school. And they've really gone out of their way, I think, in the past year to extend a hand. It's a moment, I think, when they realize they have to be humble and to really acknowledge the wrongs of the past. And there's not too many, you can't do that too many times, and I think that's been the real tone from the Canadian Church from the beginning.
Now, this meeting was supposed to happen last year after those graves were discovered, but it was postponed because of the pandemic. Do you think the time that's lapsed has eased the tension a little bit between the Church and the Canadian Indigenous rather than having the meeting right after that discovery?
Yes and no, I would say. There are many Indigenous, and even the Inuit community said this afternoon that, there are many people who are eager for this reconciliation to happen, and they are very glad that steps are being taken. But there are other members of the community that are still not ready for that, and they're almost resentful that this meeting is happening. So there's still a long road ahead.
All right. Well, these meetings will be happening all week, so we'll be following along. Elise Ann Allen, senior correspondent at Crux. Thanks for your analysis.
Thank you so much.
Over the weekend, attacks in Ukraine intensified. Russians even targeting Lviv, a western city that's so far been a safe haven. Rocket attacks struck the city, killing at least 5. But even when shrouded in the plumes of smoke, Lviv's Orthodox Catholics still celebrated Mass. This cathedral was filled with worshipers who were celebrating their 3rd Sunday of Lent. Their prayers following a surprising attack on their city, coming just a day after the Russian military said the first phase of the conflict had ended and that it was shifting its attention to the disputed eastern parts of Ukraine. It seems the Pope is hearing some of those prayers. He's sending a special ambulance to the western city. The vehicle, which was donated and blessed by the Pope, will be driven by one of his envoys to Ukraine, Cardinal Konrad Krajewski. After dropping the much-needed medical vehicle off, Cardinal Krajewski plans to stay in the city and help hundreds of thousands of refugees. Another one is also on its way. It's set to arrive on Holy Thursday. Ukraine's exodus is the largest in Europe since World War II, and just like then, there's almost nowhere that feels truly safe. Not bunkers, not even a city hundreds of miles away. But there is one place that can feel far from the fighting, one nature built, the Carpathian Mountains. They've hidden people for centuries, Jews fleeing the Nazis, Ukrainians fleeing Stalin. Locals there opening their doors for yet another humanitarian crisis. Selma Abdulaziz has the story.
Nestled deep in the Carpathian Mountains, far from the bombs and bullets, lies the idyllic ski resort of Slavsko, with plenty of room for those fleeing violence to find solace in the slopes. Many hotels have opened their doors to displaced families, some at no cost or discounted rates. Guests Stacy and Ramir found refuge here after Russian forces invaded their hometown of Kharkiv.
During this time, we usually heard like shells blowing up, lots of bombardment.
How did you feel when you arrived?
When you look at these mountains and into the news, it seems like not real.
And you're here, you're safe. You feel kind of guilty because in the beginning, I left all my family there.
This tiny mountain community of Slavsko has taken in 3,400 displaced people, nearly doubling their population. But they say it's not a burden. They want to share this sanctuary. Some have chosen less traditional accommodations. Olsa found peace for her 2 children in this glamping pod. It's calming. I feel lighter, and I start to believe everything is going to be okay. For these families, this feels like the safest place in a country where it seems everywhere is a front line. Sam Abdulaziz, Slavsko, Ukraine.
You can help the people of Ukraine from your own home thanks to the Diocese of Brooklyn's Compostela Fund. 100% of the money collected will provide direct assistance to those affected by the war. Just make a check payable to the Compostela Fund of the Archdiocese of Brooklyn with the notation Ukraine and mail it to Diocesan Finance Office, 310 Prospect Park West, Brooklyn, New York, 11215. You can also give online at catholicfoundationbq.org/Ukraine. Holy Week preparations are underway in the Diocese of Brooklyn. First up, the Chrism Mass, one of the most important celebrations of the liturgical year. It's on that night that the bishop blesses the oils that are used in the sacraments at the Co-Cathedral of St. Joseph, where the Mass will take place. The staff has already begun separating oil into hundreds of bottles that will be given out to every single parish. It's part of an ancient church tradition dating back as far as the 3rd century. The rector of the Co-Cathedral, Father Christopher Henyu, breaks down the different ways the church uses the oils.
The oil of catechumens, which is an oil that is used in baptism. The oil of the sick, certainly for those who visit homes and visit nursing homes, visit hospitals, as well as the oil, the chrism oil, which is a very blessed oil. They're all blessed oils, but the chrism oil is an oil that unites our baptism. It's used at baptism. It unites our confirmation. It's used at confirmation. And also a priest, when he is ordained, his hands are blessed with that sacred chrism oil.
In addition to the blessing of the oils, Chrism Mass is so important because it gives the bishop a chance to deliver a homily to all of the diocese's priests. It also serves as a time to salute jubilarians, religious who are celebrating anniversary milestones. The Chrism Mass will kick off the Holy Week liturgies, and you can catch all of it right here on net. Here's the rundown. We'll have live coverage of the Chrism Mass on Tuesday, April 12th at 7:30 p.m. with Bishop Brennan. Then on Holy Thursday, Bishop Brennan will celebrate the Mass of the Lord's Supper at 7 p.m. On Good Friday, he'll celebrate 2 services live on net, the Way of the Cross at 10 a.m. and the Liturgy of the Lord's Passion at 3 p.m. The Easter Vigil with Bishop Brennan will be broadcasted that Saturday at 8 p.m. and on Easter Sunday, 3 bishops will celebrate masses in different languages. Bishop Witold Morjewski will celebrate the 7 a.m. Polish Mass. Bishop Emeritus Nicholas DiMarzio will celebrate the 8 a.m. Italian, and Bishop Brennan will celebrate the 11 a.m. English Mass. Still to come on Currents News, it's an unforgettable moment that captured the hearts of people everywhere. Why this rising star isn't letting her disability define her. Plus, we take a look at basketball's best in the Diocese of Brooklyn. A special tablet report is next. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. If you thought this weekend's March Madness was exciting, and it really was, get a load of this. Video of a Michigan high schooler making a free throw has gone viral. Here's the catch. She's blind. Matt Witkos sat down with the MVP to talk about the shot and the program that made it happen.
After a couple of taps on the backboard, Jules Hoagland takes her shot. A crowd of students from Zeeland East and West erupts in excitement.
I was like, everyone's staring at me, but I can't see them staring at me, so this is good.
Because Jules is blind, she has help on the hardwood. The girl in the video behind Jules is Allie Guffey.
She's my eyes on the court because I don't have my cane, so I have to put my trust in her to make sure she doesn't let me get hit by balls, and she guides me in the right direction.
The two are inseparable on
just make sure that she's all lined up. You can put your left foot forward a little bit.
And off the court.
I had never met anyone who was blind before, so I knew nothing. She put a lot of trust into me, and it was a lot of trial and error, but we have come very, very far, and now we're in a class together for the past 2 years.
They knew each other back in middle school, but the Unified Sports Program made the two grow together almost like sisters.
I'm really gonna miss you, Allie, and I know next year I'm gonna feel the same way.
This program started several years ago as a chance to make friends.
To watch the culture shift of our school community really made a difference, and just to be able to watch how that's continued to grow, students be accepted, students be shown that they matter, and given a chance to prove that to the school body.
Got it? You got it? Yep. Okay, now stop.
This is Allie's senior year. She's already making plans to see Jules back out on the court.
So then, for that to just be done is it's hard to think about, because this has been my family for 3 years.
But I think it's humbling when you realize that those goals are reality, and that those are the relationships that now exist in our campus, in our community.
So awesome. That was Matt Witkos reporting. Jules says before the game, she missed some of her practice shots, but when she scored, she said she felt like God was with her. You can get a look at basketball's best in the Diocese of Brooklyn, the tablet newspaper showcasing this year's Diocesan Varsity All-Star team. If you pick up the paper, you'll get to see some MVPs. Here's a sneak peek of the girls. We have St. John's Prep senior forward Kayla Berry, who averaged 16 points and 10 rebounds per game this season. And then there's Bishop Laughlin's senior guard Ariel Jackson, whose skills on and off the court earned her the John Moran Sportsmanship Award. To catch the other girls and read about their accomplishments, just go to your local church and pick up a copy of the paper, or you can get it delivered straight to your mailbox. Just go to thetablet.org and subscribe. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.